Okay, so we're all set now. So thanks so much. Welcome to week 2. We're talking about diversity in organizations. This is chapter 2 from the Robinson Judge text. So diversity is one of the phenomena that modern day organizations are facing, along with discrimination. So the key learning objectives of our today's class, if we go to the next slide. So two major forms of workforce diversity we'll try to understand. Then we'll try to understand different types of discrimination in the workplace. Discrimination will be another phenomena that we will be experiencing. Then we'll define some of the key biographical characteristics and describes how they are relevant. Then we'll talk about physical and intellectual ability and demonstrate their relevance. And finally, we'll describe how organizations manage diversity. So these are the learning objectives. So I'm hoping after going through this chapter, we'll learn all of these. But we'll not cover all of these in our first lecture today, because we will also talk about the remainder of this on our next class this week. So let's see how far we can achieve these learning objectives today. Diversity and discrimination. What is diversity? So we all know that we are all unique, right? Because we come from different age group, we come from different cultural background, we come from different religious background, we come from different other phenomena that will differentiate from one another. And it's really important to observe that diversity, acknowledge that diversity, and then use that diversity as a strength within the organization. So diversity in organizational space is very important, because individual differences shape preferences for rewards, communication style, reactions to leaders, negotiation style, and every other aspect of your behavior. So when you work within an organization, it's absolutely important for yourself to recognize the diversity, and not only recognize, but also to capitalize the benefit of diversity. Imagine in an office, you have employees, they're not from the same age group. Some of them, they could be aged, they have maybe they have with gray hair, people like me. Now I'm considered part of the aged population. And there will be people with some advanced knowledge. People will come with some technical knowledge. People will come from different gender background, like some would be male and some would be female. So if you combine all of that together, this will be a strength, and managers really need to leverage from that. But unfortunate as it may sound, in many organizations, diversity is still not acknowledged as a strength. Okay, I so that's the very problem of live classes. Can I request you to put your microphone on mute, please? I was trying to identify whose microphone was that loud. This is one of the Zoom failures you may have seen in Facebook or in other social media platform. Occasionally there's some intruders, all on a sudden they'll ruin the party. So this was just about to happen in my class. Glad it's just stopped now. So can I request all of you from next time onwards to mute your microphone always? In case if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand, or unless otherwise asked, please keep your microphone on mute so that we don't get distracted. All right. I wasn't sure whose microphone was that, because there's so many windows. So anyway, just getting back to what was we talking? So we're talking about individual characteristics like age, gender, race, ethnicity, abilities can influence employee performance. And as we are talking about, one of the phenomena of modern organization is globalization. With the globalized effect these days, there are lots of MNCs, and you'll end up having lots of people from different cultural background. So it's really important for organization to make sure that there is sound diversity that exists. And in fact, majority of the successful organization, the strength or the key to their success is actually they are a very diverse workforce because they have endorsed diversity. They have recognized diversity, and not only they have recognized, but they have also leveraged from that, because in many organizations, diversity is not being seen as a strength. And that's where they fail, because they fail to capture the benefits of being a diverse workforce. So that's what we will dig into today, is to learn what are the various forms of diversity. And along with diversity, another D that comes in is discrimination. That we'll also understand today. So diversity type, all right? So when it comes to diversity, there are two different types of diversity. One obviously is a deep level diversity, which is obviously differences in values, personalities, ways of thinking, work preferences, and there will be differences or diversity in terms of determining similarity as people get to know one another. So this is like a deep level, like, one deep, and I'll speak about a theory that will relate with this one. But the surface level diversity could be easily perceived, like, male, female, gender, race, ethnicity, disability, some people with different cultural background, all of these. So these are very surface level. One day, if you walk into an office, if you just cast your eye over the office, you'll see, okay, some people, they're male, some are female, some with different age group, some people with good physical ability, some may not. Some people have colors of different, their skin color is different. So these are all surface level diversity. And you acknowledge that, oh, okay, all right, you've got diverse workforce, but there's some deep level diversity that's really needs to be acknowledged. In fact, that's the key of the organizational diversity. Okay, so differences in values, that's really one of the deep level diversity, because despite having a very surface level diversity in your workforce, you will find that there are lots of people with differences in values and personality, ways of thinking, and work preferences. And these are very important factors, because if you have people within the organization who have lots of different values, then that's something you need to be careful about, because the values and personality that will clash, and that could create some problem. I'd like to give you an example of a theory which is known as the theory of iceberg. And the theory of iceberg could be one good reflection here. So let me just show you another image from another slide so that I can just tell you what I mean by the theory of iceberg. Okay, so I'll just show you another screen. That's probably the benefit of using a virtual classroom, because I can switch between things. So the theory of iceberg. Now, let me just take you back to time. How many of you have seen the movie Titanic?
I guess all of us.
Yeah. Who have not seen the movie Titanic? Ahsanul Kabir?
I had seen, sir.
Okay, all right.
3 to 4 times, sir.
3 to 4 times.
Yes, sir.
Who's got the highest score? I think people during those times, they've scored like, I've seen the movie 20 times. I've seen 30 times. Everyone is emotional about the movie. Mehzabeen, how many times have you seen the movie?
5 to 6
times.
All right. Who can tell me what was the reason the Titanic sank?
Sir, it got hit by an iceberg.
Okay. But
So there was a mismanagement during at that time to avoid the risks.
okay. Any other reflection? Farabi, any thoughts from you?
Sir, I can't speak. I'm really sorry. My face is swollen because I went through a hair transplant surgery procedure. So.
Okay, that's all right. That sounds cool. But any thoughts on the movie? Anyone else?
Sir, the Titanic broke into half as far as I remember after it hit the iceberg.
Yep, that's right. It did break into half. The thing that I wanted to bring into your attention is that Titanic was claimed as a ship that is unsinkable. The captain and the people who made the ship, they say Titanic is an unsinkable ship. This will never sink. But as funny as it may sound, Titanic actually hit a very small iceberg and then it sank. And in many organizational studies, this has been used as an analogy of how, the theory of iceberg actually works, because at a surface level, we only see the tip of the iceberg. As you can see in this image, we can only see the tip of the iceberg, which is very small. But if we go deep down at the bottom, we will see there is a very heavy chunk of iceberg remaining under the water. And that's what happened in the case of Titanic as well, because Titanic, as it appears, they've only hit the tip of the iceberg, but actually deep down inside, if you have seen the movie, the iceberg was so huge, it made a very heavy dent on the body of the ship that was under the water. And that's what caused Titanic to sink. So similarly, there are lots of problems within the organization that only has a very surface level, like what we see. So diversity is something like that. Within the organization, we can only see the surface of the diversity problem. But deep down inside, the deep level diversity, that's really something needs to be considered. So this was something that's really we need to take into consideration, and you'll find that has been used in many organizational studies. So we'll get back to that again. There's another thing that I wanted to bring into your attention, which is known as a glass ceiling effect. All right. Another analogy. What is a glass ceiling effect? Does anyone know? Have you heard this terminology before? All right.
An invisible barrier that prevents certain races from achieving something in an organization.
Yes, very well said. Very pleased, Ikra. Thank you so much. That's a very good articulation. So it's an invisible barrier that will cause certain groups, and typically that's the female counterpart in the organization, to not being able to provide them their full potential or their full, rights within the organization. And that's what the glass ceiling effect is. So I'm just going to go back to my main slides again. So we were talking about the type of diversity. So what I was trying to tell you that the surface level diversity could be easily seen, but the deep level diversity in the organization, that needs to be understood. So this could be a quiz question. What's the difference between surface level diversity and deep level diversity, or how many type of diversities are there? So keep that in mind. Okay. Now talk about discrimination. This is another concept. So we all understand what is discrimination, right? Giving improper attention to or discriminating between, or among groups of people. Here's one scenario. Two employees of different age joined the organization at the same time, did the same job, and perform at the same level. However, the manager of the organization promoted the younger employee. Assume that there is no difference between two employees of an age. Should you call it discrimination? Why or why not? Who can tell me? Who can put some reflection here? Is there an example of discrimination?
Sir, it can be, sir, based on race or based on any religious status, gender, or something like that, especially to provide extra benefit to the particular person, or any types of partiality type behaviors towards any particular person.
Okay, yes, that's right. So this is an ideal example. As you can see in this situation, two employees, they did the same job. They performed at the same level, but still the one that was the younger, he or she got promoted. And probably the reason was he was considered as more efficient as opposed to the other one who was slightly aged than this younger individual. Despite their performance level was the same, but only one received the promotion. So this is an example of discrimination. So discrimination occurs within the organization when people receive selective attention based on the particular characteristics they're characterized by. Now, sometimes discrimination works in favor of someone, sometimes discrimination works in disfavor of someone. So in this case, this younger employee was favored compared to the other one. So the other one was the victim of discrimination. So these are various forms of discrimination. Let's have a look and deeply reflect on each of these. There are some examples, and you'll find this exhibit from the text as well. Discriminatory policies or practices. So some policies like actions taken by the representative of the organization that deny equal opportunity to perform or unequal rewards performance. So a common problem is that older workers may be targeted for layoffs because they are highly paid and have lucrative benefits. Most of the time you'll see, all right, the ones that are very old, probably they get paid better because they've been working in the organization a bit longer than others. So that's one. Discriminatory policies. Intimidation, over threats or bullying directed at members of specific groups of employees. An example, maybe in a multinational organization, we can see African American. This is an American example, the textbook or the authors, American authors giving American examples. So African American employees at some companies have found nooses hanging over their stations. So that's an example. We know that, at least you've seen in the America, like after the Black Lives Matters revolution, you have seen that like a lot of the African American or the Black people in America, they're still vastly discriminated in America. So a lot of the time we get to see that they are being intimidated even in the workplaces as well. Mockery and insult, jokes or negative stereotypes, sometimes the result of jokes taken too far. Yes, this happens. Arab Americans have been asked at work whether they are carrying bombs or whether they're members of terrorists of the organization. And that's a common stereotypical behavior. Muslims equals terrorist in many countries, and especially after 9/11 or many such behavior or such incidences, terrorism incidences, people considered with beard or with Arab background or even Muslim background with Muslim name, they're still considered as stereotypically they're considered as having association with terrorists and whatnot. So similarly, I'm not just going to go through each of these. Inclusion, incivility. So these are all examples of discrimination. So these could be quiz question, again, hints for your quizzes. Types of discrimination, which one is a type of discrimination? Then you have to select from the given list, all right? So keep an eye on this exhibit on the forms of various discriminations. Discrimination in the workplace. Actual discrimination can lead to what? Reduced productivity and OCB, all right? So reduced productivity is one of the biggest problem because in many organizations, when there is a problem that people are not receiving the right attention, or if you are not being given the probably the attention that you should receive, or you're discriminated, obviously that will reduce your productivity because you will tend to be demotivated, and that will affect your productivity. OCB means organizational citizenship behavior. So every employee need to have that organizational citizenship behavior. And if there's discrimination, that is likely to affect your citizenship behavior. Citizenship refers to your level of compliance within the organization, how compliant you are with the policies within the organization. And naturally, when you're discriminated, you will tend to slack off, you will tend to be demotivated, and eventually your citizenship behavior will tend to work negatively. There'll be more conflict, because when you have an employee group which are discriminated, obviously there will be conflict within the small groups within the organization. So that's another very nature. And increased turnover, that's another problem. Turnover, I hope you all understood the phrase turnover. That means more people leaving their job. So there will be increased turnover if there's discrimination. And we get to see this a lot of the time because a lot of the qualified candidates are out of the hiring process. Now, as unfortunate as it sounds, in Bangladesh, in lots of Bangladeshi organizations, when it comes to getting a job, still these days, there are situations of discrimination. Let me reflect back from one of my examples. I studied from Rajshahi University, all right? So back in 2000s, you know, probably not a lot of you weren't even born maybe, or maybe you were born at that time. So when I studied in Rajshahi University, after finishing my graduation, I went to get a job in a reputed Bangladeshi multinational corporation. I'm not saying the name, just so that I can de-identify this situation. So I went there, and there were quite a few other people. They were like, you know, applying for the same role. And I knew one of my friends. He used to study in a reputed private university in Bangladesh. And he actually had not so great result, because I knew that, you know, his dad has lots of money, but in terms of his academic achievements, he didn't have lots of great academic achievements. Whereas I had always good results, like, you know, back in my, like, you know, school days, in my college days, university, I was always like the topper in the class. So when we both applied for this role, you know, my interview was very good. And on the very day we met together after the interview, we were chatting in between, like, you know, how was your interview? He was asking, Je, tor interview kemon holo? I told him, yeah, amar to bhaloi hoyese. Tor ki obostha? Tor interview kemon holo? So we all had, like, you know, we both chatted, and we both felt like my interview was much better than him. He also acknowledged that, yes, I think because he couldn't answer some of the questions. So eventually, when it came, the result of the, like, you know, the outcome, I didn't get the job. He got the job. To my surprise, he actually got the job. Even he was very surprised that he got the job. So the thing was, I made this, I don't know, probably this was a stereotypical behavior from my end. I ended up with this summary that since I was coming from a regional university, which is not situated in the capital or not a reputed, like, academic institutions, probably Raj University is still considered, right, it started from Raj University, a backdated place, it's the Mofusol Shahor and things like that. So my summary was that I was discriminated in that case because I didn't get the job, and he got the job because he was a well-off family, and also he studied from a reputed university in Dhaka. Despite his academic achievements weren't that great. So some of you may be, you can resonate with this because this is still the case in many cases. I don't know, probably situations may have improved back, like, 15 years ago, what it used to be. Today, probably it has improved a lot, but still there exist these sort of, examples. So the glass ceiling effect that we were talking about is typically something that could be related here, is that there is an invisible glass ceiling that will create that invisible barrier from certain groups to excel. And this is typically the victims are the minority groups, people who represent a minority, then women. They're also being the victim of typical glass ceiling because they face that obstacle within the organization to get promoted. When it comes to the leadership within the organization, in most cases, you'll find the males are the one who will lead the organization. So there are lots of visible and invisible glass ceiling that will affect, and this is also another picture of the of discrimination within the workplace as well. Has anyone got any experience you'd like to share? Anything that you have faced in any, I don't know, whether in education, whether in your, like, anywhere? Any reflection from anyone? Have you ever been victim of discrimination anywhere?
Sir, I was a victim of, like, I was in San Francisco on vacation with my mom. So I was at my mom's place, and she had a bike, right? So I was riding around the neighborhood, and there was this lane just for the bikes. So there was this guy, I just asked him, like, I lost direction and I was not using my GPS. So I forgot the name of the place. So I asked him where that place was, and he was like, don't talk to me. Like, I wasn't, like, he just said that and he just walked away. So that was pretty bad.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks, Ravi. So you'll find in the Western cultures, in lots of countries, when you go to the Western culture or the Western countries, there's still that racial effect. Many people they will face. In fact, countries like in America, and although despite they say we're the biggest or the greatest nation on earth, there are lots of discrimination that exists. Like brown people, people with color, curry people. They also call us curry people as well. I have faced this one as well. When I first went to Australia to study in university, I went to undertake my PhD. And then I got into the university. One of the academics, he was telling me, oh, you're the curry people, because he considered me as Indian. Like my skin color is brown. So all the brown people, oh, they're all Indian. So there's this thing that exists that this is probably the next topic that we're just going to talk is stereotyping. So stereotyping is associating people based on some preconceived notion. That's what stereotyping is. So people in Australia, they have this, like, they call Asian people. So Asian people means everyone that has slanty eyes, like, small eyes, slanty eyes, and a bochanak, like, they've got a, like, tiny nose, and they call all of them as Asians. All right. So regardless of whether they're Chinese or Japanese or Vietnamese or, all of these, so they are all known as Asian. People with brown skin tone like ours, they'll call all of them as Indians. Now, regardless of, they don't know, oh, okay, Bangladeshi or Pakistan or Indian. So they'll call all of them as Indians. All right, these are all Indians. So that's what one of the academics, he was telling me, that you guys are curry people because we all eat curry a lot. So that's why they tell us as curry people. So this is a nice segue for our next topic, which was stereotyping. One thing makes discrimination more dangerous. Can you guess what is that? Yes, that's what we're just about to talk about. It's called stereotyping. So stereotyping is what makes discrimination is even more dangerous. Has anyone heard the term stereotyping? We use that term a lot, stereotypical behavior or stereotyping. So this will be our last topic today, and after that we'll do a bit of reflection within small groups that we do. What is stereotyping?
Sir, like Chinese people are good at math, like that can be a stereotype.
Yes, yes. All the Asian people good at math. All the Muslims, they are terrorists. Here's some examples. Girls are not good at sports. Guys are messy and unclean. All Mexicans are lazy and came into America illegally. Older people are not good with technology. So these are some stereotypical thoughts when judging someone on the basis of our perception of the group to which that person belongs. So it's a perceptual problem. Stereotyping comes from a perceptual problem. We as human beings, we form our own perception based on our knowledge about a certain group or a certain phenomena. And based on that knowledge, we tend to judge everyone else falling under that group, not considering the various types that may exist within that various groups. For instance, whenever it comes to girls, we consider them as weak. All right, girls, not that, they may not be great leaders. Men, yeah, they're always messy and unclean. And, I don't know, maybe girls can have some of your own stereotype about boys, and boys would also have something about girls. And these are not right. You should not judge people based on some stereotypical fact that you may have heard from somewhere else, or one specific example is not the representation of the whole, counterpart of the whole group. So stereotyping is another biggest problem, which makes even discrimination even more severe. And this is something we need to be cautious about. So when it comes to stereotyping, it's a threat. It's an organizational threat. So the degree to which we internally agree with the generally negative stereotype perception of our groups, okay? We might just think about some examples, start thinking about some examples, like over-identifying with stereotype threat, overcompensating for stereotype threat. So can someone give me some example of stereotypical thinking?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sir, one of the main stereotypical thinking in Bangladesh is regarding the term BNCC, which means Borishal, Noakhali, Kumilla, and Chittagong, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So there is they stereotype these people hardly, really hard. Most of them say that the Borishal people live in lawns more than their home, and then Noakhali peoples are more into fighting. Then there is a stereotype regarding the Brahmanbarians that they are really rude and cruel.
Yeah.
These are the type of stereotypes we face in day-to-day life in Bangladesh.
Yes, very good example. Thanks, Abrar. So these are some good examples. Like, location-wise, we tend to do some stereotypical thinking. And this, again, as Abrar mentioned, like, this happens a lot. We tend to associate people if they come from a certain geographical background, and that's totally wrong. Not every people from Noakhali would be probably aggressive, or I've heard people from Noakhali, they tend to be more hungry for money, and that's a totally wrong misrepresentation. Not everyone is like that. So yes, there are some form of stereotypical behavior when it comes to location. Any other example from anyone?
Yeah, people of Uttara and Mirpur call villagers or outside of Dhaka. They live in.
Yeah, that's another good one. So yeah, I don't think that's gonna be the case any longer, because with the obviously introduction of light rail and everything, that bridge, that gap will be bridged obviously with communication. So I don't think that's going to be an issue any longer. I've never heard about that, by the way. Is it really the case? Like, are these people considered as village people?
Yes, sir. It was even a meme at one point.
Okay, all right. That's a funny one. All right. Any other example of stereotype?
Sir, example can be regarding a professional example. Like, sir, all policies are corrupted, then all political leaders are so much bad people or dangerous people.
Okay.
And lawyers are kind of cheater. I have heard from this Bangladeshi society.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. So thanks so much. So now we're going to do a bit of breakout room talk. All right. So this is going to be an interesting chat within your group members to talk about, reflect on the 3 topics. First, diversity. Second, discrimination. And third, stereotyping. All right. So I'm going to give you a scenario. Okay. So the scenario is, let me just share the screen. So I'll just give you a bit of clue. What are you going to do? It's a quick chat I want you to do in your group, and then come up with some thoughts, some reflections. All right, so here's the scenario. Recently got a job as HR manager in a reputed MNC in Bangladesh. You observe that the overall workforce lacks diversity and there exists some discrimination in the overall organizational policy. In your group, discuss some strategies that will help this organization to reduce discrimination. All right. So in bullet points, maybe 5 points that will help this organization to improve its current situation, because it lacks diversity and there are also some discrimination as well. So maybe based on the conversation that we had, I guess you don't have to worry about being right or wrong. Just talk about these things and then come up with like quick, sharp, 5 points. All right. So I'm just going to randomly assign you into the breakout room as well. And then we will just go through these, just have a quick discussion in a big group as well. All right, so let me just create some breakout rooms. And all right, so I'm just gonna throw you all into different breakout rooms, and I hope you have understood. So this MNC is lacking diversity, and there are lots of discrimination. So talk about some policies or some strategies that will help this organization to minimize discrimination, right? So opening up all the rooms, and we've got about 5 to 7 minutes quickly to talk about this. And after that, I'll close the room and we'll get back to the big room again and to reflect back onto those different discussions that you're having within the small groups. So you're all invited to join the breakout rooms now. So we're all back from the breakout rooms. All right, so just some quick reflection from each of the groups. Let me just go to room one. All right, so whoever was in room one, could you please reflect what was the discussion in your group, please?
Okay, so the first and the foremost strategy is educate the employees on anti-discrimination policy and teach the employees how discrimination in an organization reduces the overall performance and the productivity. The second one is while hiring, while recruiting, stick to the job requirements and be sure to select the person that best fits those requirements and that you feel will be the best asset of your company, and ignore the any other factors mainly, and actively investigate and give sanction on incidents and of discrimination. While when employees are aware of the consequences that you feel will be, when employees are aware of the consequences of any acts of discrimination, they will actively stop doing those acts and actions. And finally, professionalism in the workplace. Keeping a professional work environment can help prevent inappropriate behavior in the office. A professional setting includes employees maintain their politeness, their respect, their competence, and maturity. That's all.
Okay. Very well done, Siam. I'm really very pleased. The level of comprehension that you had, it's really good. You guys could be a very good HR manager for sure. Well done. Going to room number 2 now.
Yes, sir. So first and foremost, to increase diversity, I think every company should have a generalized form, and they should not include things like this type of people can apply, and they should not focus on their more sexual orientation or their ancestry and from where they originated. Instead, they should focus on the qualifications and what are their educational background in order to maintain the diversity. And second, in order to eliminate discrimination, as the group room 1 said, that yes, they should maintain professionalism, and at the same time every members of an organization should undergo training programs, or they should be given motivational speeches, and they should be aware of that other genders or other race, other ethnicity are not harmful, and just because they are from different religion doesn't mean they're being terrorized and everything. They should be known aware of that. They should have programs and like that. They should have workshops, and every member should, first and foremost, every member should respect all the cultural and all the societal aspects. I'm sorry. And at the same time, the companies should have a policy, their internal policy, that if any members is suspected to undergo racial behavior or discrimination, they have the right and authority to report it back to the organization. So in that way, the authorities can take, what's that called? And take the authorities can take proper appropriate actions and everything. So in that way, the workplace will be safe and discrimination can be reduced drastically.
Very nice. Thanks, Ines. Thank you so much.
Welcome. I'm sorry, sir, I'm a bit sick, so.
No, that's all right. Get a COVID test, maybe.
I am positive.
Uh-oh. Well, half of the Bangladeshi population is positive. Don't worry. The news that we see, it does not give us the clear numbers. So, like, I think with the current weather and everything, I think majority, at least people in the Dhaka, it's like COVID positive. So, don't worry. Okay, moving on to room number 3. Someone from room number 3, could you please share some thoughts?
Sir, I'm going to talk from group 3. So the strategies we can take will help our organization to reduce discrimination are, like we can have this complaint box where the employees can put complaints if they have faced some discrimination or stereotyping. And during teamwork, we can have unanimous opinion sharing, so that no one is discriminated and no one's opinion gets reduced. we can have weekly sessions and workshops which will make the employees more aware of diversity and how to avoid these stereotypes or discriminations. Also, the company should have written policies and zero tolerance policies for this so that we can avoid this type of discrimination and inclusiveness for diversity. During the recruitment, it should be taken care of that no favoritism or nepotism takes place during the recruitment. Other than that, we can have team building activities through interactive games so that the employees can bond more. So that was all from us.
Okay, very well said. Thanks, Monami. Nice thoughts. Passing it to the next group.
Sir, at first, being a HR manager, I must to be neutral and impartial to sustain the equality to the society, to the workplace. So there is a famous quote like he who comes into equity must come with clean hands. So in order to sustain equality towards the all workers, I have to make a policy which is based on equity. Moreover, I should give chances from different classes of people, especially besides Bengali. I may appoint Chakma, Marma, Khashia, and people from different districts, different areas, different states, in order to reduce minority problem in the workplace. And thirdly, arranging programs like hangouts, seminars, or any other tour programs where everyone's are attend there, so that we will make too much respect. We will grow more respect to the workplace and providing respect to all and reduce more hatred towards the particular classes or particular the society in the workplace, so that we can sustain a good workplace with no discrimination.
Yeah, very well said. Thanks. I'm glad you've talked about the minority groups, bringing the minority groups into action as well. So that's a good point. So well done. Passing it to the next group. Room number 4.
Sir, room number 4 just described.
Okay, all right. 5. Any representative from room 5?
There is room 5.
Who was in room 5?
Sir, maybe there is no room 5.
There was a room 5, as far as I recall. We did open another room. Was there a room 6? Okay. We do have lots of inactive people who are not participating that much. So really want everyone to voluntarily participate into the discussion as well. Is there anyone who would like to share some reflection based on the discussion that we had so far? Like, what's your thought? I am really pleased to see the level of comprehension again. Some good thoughts came out. I think one thing that I have understood from a lot of your talks is that you emphasize the importance of education and wider communication, which is actually the most important thing. Raising awareness about discrimination and the diversity factor, that's really the key, because a lot of the organizations, they're not aware of the diversity factors or discrimination that exist, because there's some invisible discrimination that exists, and these are inherent or by default that exist, and that needs to be removed. So a lot of these could be removed with wider communication and raising the awareness, and also educating the employees from the day one. So as some of you highlighted, that from the very beginning, the recruitment process should be very impartial so that there's no discrimination. And then people should be judged based on their ability, the job description that they are hired for. Considering those, that's really important. So these are some really policies or some strategies that will really help organizations to tackle the challenges of discrimination and diversity. So in our next class, we're going to reflect into some practical case studies, some practical scenarios on how some of the reputed organizations in the world, they are actually tackling the problem of diversity and discrimination. So today's class, we just put the ideas into perspective, like what is discrimination, what is diversity, what is stereotyping, and in the next class, we'll do some further reflection when we will be talking these factors at length, and we'll do some case study analysis. Like we did last week, we were talking about organizational behavior. We looked into Google and saw how they have been utilizing or leveraging from analyzing their employees and things like that. So with that note, I'm just going to wrap up my today's discussion and just go towards some of the admin type things. So first will be the attendance. I'm just going to take the class attendance now. Let me just take the class attendance.